For more on the legacy that Hugo Chavez leaves behind, I'm joined by Pepe Escobar, an investigative journalist and Asia Times correspondent covering Latin America. Thank you for joining us. So, Venezuela begins a new chapter in its history. Those were the words of U.S. President Barack Obama. What's the overt message that he's giving there?
In fact, Obama's message was a bit ridiculous. You know, he said that we're going to stand united with the Venezuelan people. What kind of people does he mean? Does he mean that the people who elected and re-elected Chavez in 13 out of 14 democratic elections? Or does he mean these people who go to New York and Miami to trade martinis and demonize Chavez and the Chavistas as evil, dangerous communists? This is ridiculous. The most important thing, in my opinion, Chavez, in terms of a political leader, he was always referring to an international revolutionary tradition, from Mao Zedong to Che Guevara. He was like an Elvis of modern geopolitics. Bigger than Elvis, in fact, because he won almost all the elections that he participated. And the thing is, why this demonization of Chavez, even post-mortem? And it will grow, believe me, especially in the US. First of all, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. So the United States and European Union, they can say all you need is love, or sing all you need is love to those ghastly petromonarchies in the Persian Gulf. But in Venezuela, the leader of Venezuela decided to use the oil wells to the benefit of the lower classes in Venezuela. This is something unheard of in the Persian Gulf. And that's why he is being demonized and will continue to be demonized. The verdict, the historical verdict on Chavez, it's complicated. It will take a few years to put him in a revolutionary tradition as a popular leader, and in terms of ending with the hegemony of imperialistic interests in Latin America. So after Chavez, remember, came Lula in Brazil, came Correa in Ecuador, came Mujica in Uruguay, Morales in Bolivia, leftist progressive governments all over, especially South America. And Chavez's ideas was always better integration of South and Central America, Latin America in general. So he had myriad opportunities to try to exercise that via UNASUR, for instance, the Union of South American Countries, Telesur, which is a media company controlled by a Venezuelan state, but against private interests, which of course are golpistas, as we say in South America. Coming back to that coup in 2002, which was a faction of the military allied with very powerful
I'm sorry, Pepe, I've got to cut in here.
Supported by the US.
I've got to come in here. What do you make of the accusations from Caracas, from Vice President Maduro in particular, about accusations of foul play in Chavez's death?
This is very complicated because we don't have proof. Remember, it took us years to understand what really happened to Arafat. That was in 2004. It took 6 years to discover that Arafat was poisoned by polonium 2010. It could be the same thing with Chavez. It's possible. Don't forget, okay, this is not a conspiracy theory. The CIA tried to poison Fidel Castro 1,000 times. Maybe they had a break with Chavez as well. Nobody knows, in fact. So we have to understand this, not in terms of a conspiracy theory, but we have to always hark back to the military coup in 2002. This was promoted by Washington, organized with the American embassy in Caracas, with these powerful Venezuelan players who always go back to Miami or New York. So they have a reason, the Chavistas, to be slightly paranoid about it. We still don't know the facts, as we still don't know the facts about the cancer of Hugo Chavez, in fact, because information was withheld from public opinion for the past few months. And it's crazy because then you watch Fox News today, they're saying that bad Cuban medicine killed Hugo Chavez, which is completely stupid. There are over 30,000 Cuban doctors helping poor people in Venezuela. This speaks for itself. Can you imagine if we had these doctors helping poor people in the US as well? What would Barack Obama say about that?
All right, got to jump in. It was a neck-and-neck presidential race last year. What are the chances of Chavez's chosen successor, in this case Maduro, claiming power now?
It's very easy. Maduro, he's not an articulator like Cabello, which is the president of the National Assembly. In fact, there wasn't a speculation that Cabello would be in power for the next 30 days before the next elections. No, it's going to be Maduro. He's going to run as vice president, and he's going to win. First of all, because the opposition, they prefer Miami, New York, just like the Venezuelan middle classes, like the other South American middle classes and upper middle classes, which abhor the fact that in Venezuela, in Ecuador, in Uruguay, in Argentina, in Brazil, there was an enormous redistribution of wealth these past 10 years or so. So he's going to win. The problem is, can he keep what we called the Bolivarian socialist revolution in Venezuela, which is a misnomer? It's not exactly a revolution. It's a more participative government. It's a more inclusive government, but it's not socialism at all. It has elements of neoliberalism as well. How this is going to be organized without this larger-than-life Elvis of geopolitics, which was Hugo Chavez. And expect a lot of disturbance inside Venezuela, because the disorganized opposition and some small faction of the military, they will be talking to Washington, Miami, New York on a daily basis. What about our next coup?
All right, we have to leave it there. Pepe Escobar, investigative journalist for the Asia Times. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Stephen Zunis, a professor of politics and international studies at the University of San Francisco, thinks Chavez's presidency was significant in Venezuela's history, and it may take a lot to undermine the authority of the government that he leaves behind.
Who emerges at the top, could depend on a number of internal factors, but I think the main thing is that Venezuelan politics has been changed forever. While Venezuela, to its credit, was one of the more democratic countries in Latin America during a time when much of the hemisphere was under right-wing military dictatorships, it was very much a plutocracy where elites dominated the two major political parties. There was incredible inequality and immense poverty despite the enormous oil wealth. And Chavez, to his credit, despite some semi-authoritarian excesses, was able to empower the population, empower the poor majority, who are not going to go back to the old ways. And so whoever emerges to lead Venezuela in the coming years and decades is going to be a very, very different country that they'll be governing, thanks to Hugo Chavez.
We heard from author and historian Gerald Horne, who thinks Washington may try to take advantage from Chavez's death.
There's a joke in the Western Hemisphere that goes like this. Why has the government in the United States been so stable opposed to governments in Latin America? The answer, there's no U.S. embassy in Washington, D.C. Relations with Washington have never been good with Venezuela during the Chavez regime. Recall that approximately a decade ago, there was an attempted coup against Mr. Chavez, and there were suspicions at that time that Washington was involved. Recall also that Mr. Chavez's close ally in Cuba, led by the Castro brothers, has been an enemy of Washington for years now.